You're listening to the Ask Drone U podcast. You ask, we answer your drone questions. Whether you're here to turn your passion into profit or you simply fly for fun, we're a community of learners and teachers who aspire to achieve greatness. We are
Drone U.
Hey everyone, welcome to another awesome episode of Ask Drone U. My name is Paul. You're listening to episode number 374, and today I have the pleasure of having Marque Cornblatt with me from the Aerial Sports League. Marque, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you for being with us. Marque, you have been really an inspiration to a lot of people in the drone industry. For people who don't know who you are, can you give us a little bit of background on everything from, you have been in drones for a while. You've been doing a lot with racing and competitions and have really kind of changed the direction of drone racing. So give us a little history about yourself.
Sure, absolutely. Well, I first got into drones, like a lot of us, about 4 or 5 years ago. And back then, my friends and I in the San Francisco Bay Area were all robot builders and inventors and part of this kind of creative robot sports world that the Bay Area really endorses. And so a few years ago, we'd get together on Friday nights and drink some beers and smash our robots together in a very informal robot fight club. And so it was about 5 or 6 years ago, we started playing with the commercial drones that were available, and we immediately started batching those together. It was a very natural thing to do for our community of robot fighters to fight our drones. But back then, the drones that were available were very primitive, and their first commercial drones out there are very fragile. And so we began almost immediately an arms race to develop drones that could handle the abuse and the rigors of drone combat games. Out of that, we started a Kickstarter in, I think, 2013. And really, that was just because the videos that we were producing showing the DIY projects to build the better drones really caught on fire. There was a little viral popularity around that, and people wanted this drone airframe, this really rugged body. So we did a Kickstarter, and from that, the exposure for drone sports and drone combat really exploded. And after that, our little private meetup on Friday nights turned into a massive meetup with hundreds of people showing up to every event that we were having. Wow. And so out of that, we were doing drone combat and sort of drone acrobatics, and racing came on the scene right around that time, around 2014. And at that point, really, things really exploded because once people started putting the goggles on, the attraction for that out-of-body experience, for that flow state, really was the main, I think, catalyst that brought a whole bunch of new people into the sport. There had been people who were interested in drones and sort of dabbling in them. But once they put the goggles on and started racing, it was like a tsunami because that experience really is like a drug. So at
Interesting.
that point,
it's definitely an addiction. So to clarify for everyone who's listening, you're talking about you really started with fighting robots, got into drones, and now you're crashing drones together?
Yeah, absolutely. We, as sort of artists in the Bay Area, we're always looking to kind of have fun with our machines. And so the rule of thumb historically with flying objects, with airplanes, and with remote control vehicles has always been: don't crash them together, land them safely. They're not especially rugged because they're not meant to crash. So when they do crash, they're usually devastating, accidents in terms of the hardware. And so that was the first thing that we wanted to do, was smash our toys together. And that really inspired us and a lot of other people to start making drones that could handle the abuse of these activities that were absolutely going to cause crashes. Drone racing is a natural, of course you don't want to crash, but it's a very natural part of the experience. And so without drones getting tougher and tougher, drone racing would have, been sort of held back. And so everyone out there has been trying to figure out how to build faster, better, lighter drones. So the idea that you would take something like a drone and purposefully try and destroy it really is, it's not a destructive act. It's R&D. It's building a better piece of hardware for the industry. We were very proud of the fact that we would smash our drones with baseball bats, run them over with cars. In fact, one time, very famously, shooting a drone out of the sky with a shotgun, not to be violent and say drones are bad, but to test the ability of the drone to survive the impacts.
And did it survive that impact?
Yes and no. We were really only testing our airframe. And so the airframe survived it really well. Some other components, like the propellers and the motor, they got hit by the shotgun blast. And so we replaced those parts and put that airframe back up in the air in about 5 minutes. So you can say that, of course, we shot it out of the sky, and so its functionality was interrupted. But by the same token, what we were trying to prove was that the airframe was rugged, and the fact that we were able to shoot that airframe and it was still stable and viable as an airframe was, to us, a proof of concept. And so that video was actually one of the things that really set our whole business in motion. That was a video called Shotgun versus Drone. And so people sort of got what it was about right from the title, and it went viral. And then we were called Game of Drones at that point, and that was just the kind of tongue-in-cheek name of our viral video series that we were producing. And we kind of fell into business with that brand name, and for a year or two we were developing and building our business under that name until we reached a certain point where we realized it was a bit of a cliche that had gotten tired. It was funny at first, but now everybody was using that cliche for titles in news articles and blog posts. And so we also, at the same time, were realizing that we were focusing almost exclusively on the sports side of drones. We had been talking to some other vertical markets and started putting those aside to focus on sports. And so it was a natural progression to go from Game of Drones to Aerial Sports League. And we made that transition about a year and a half ago and really decided at that point to completely focus on developing the world of drone sports. And in fact, taking that a step further, in the last month, we've actually developed and launched what we're calling Drone Sports World, which is a whole new way of bringing an audience to the experience of drone racing and drone combat.
So tell us about Drone Sports World, because as I understand it, what you have essentially done is built the first permanent structure, the first business in the United States where people can not only go to race drones, but also you're creating more of an experience for the audience, right? I mean, because that's a big issue with FPV racing, and I mean, this is a big issue with wake surfing, for example.
Sure.
Something I shoot a lot of. It's really hard to have an audience there and being able to experience, what the pilot is experiencing. So tell us about what you have done here, the model, and your experience so far.
Sure, absolutely. We had an opportunity to work with Maker Faire over the years to bring drone sports and to a wider public. And we started with combat, and we increasingly added things like racing into the experience, as well as things like hands-on drone training. And recently, we had a Maker Faire here in California where we erected a large freestanding tent that was dark, and we put the racetrack inside of it. So it was relatively a small track compared to what people typically expect at a drone race. It was about a third the size of a typical track. But it was in the dark, and it was lit up, and we actually had bleachers for about 500 people. Wow. And so we really, anywhere you sat in the room, you could see the entire track and watch the drone go from start to finish without interruption. We also made the drones highly visible with LED lights, and so each drone was color-coded. And the track was lit up but simple so that you were able to watch the drones through the track, and it wasn't a distraction. And by controlling the environment somewhat theatrically, as opposed to out in a field where you don't have control over the light and the clouds and things like that, we were able to create an experience by which the audience really understood the racing, and they could watch and appreciate the subtleties for the first time. We also had some Jumbotron screens set up so that you could watch instant replays and have real-time stats and timing information from the track. One other thing that we did, because drone racing is so much based around that flow state experience the pilots have wearing the goggles, is that we worked directly with Fat Shark to create a goggle station where audience members could sit down, put the goggles on, and literally experience the race from the exact same perspective that the pilots were experiencing.
That's awesome.
To get that flow state. And I think over the weekend, we had something like 150,000 spectators through the tent, and we had something like 5,000 to 10,000 people put those goggles on for at least one or two races. And
that's a large number of people.
It was transformative. Most of the people who came in would watch at least one or two races. So they kind of sat and stayed for about 20 minutes on average. That room, which held 500 people in the seats, held about 2,500 people standing. And throughout most of the weekend, we had a standing room only crowd watching the drone races. And if you couldn't see the track because of the size of the crowd, we had the jumbotrons with the instant replay. We were feeding a lot of the FPV footage into those video screens as well. So from the very beginning, even though we were producing a race, we were producing it with all the needs of an audience in mind. And that whole experience was streaming to the web as well. But we really wanted to make sure that it worked for a live in-studio audience because we knew that we were going to have a large crowd and we wanted them to have a lot of fun with it. And so we took that idea from Maker Faire to the Innovation Hangar, which is the Palace of Fine Arts here in San Francisco, an enormous historic building that used to be the home of the famous Exploratorium Museum. And we've had an opportunity to work with them in recent months to put on individual events. And on the 16th of this month, we're actually hosting a preview party for what we are doing there full time in the fall. The preview party is actually a one-night nightclub event where we have a liquor license, so there'll be a large audience enjoying cocktails. And we'll have DJs and other entertainment there. But the core activity will be this dark track, racetrack that I described. It'll be really small. It'll be surrounded by net and totally safe. And so that'll be the sort of the main ring of a 3-ring circus of drone, sports, and entertainment. And that'll be the focus of this nightclub.
So I have to ask the obvious question here. I'm sure everyone is thinking it right now. So you're serving alcohol to the audience. Are the pilots able to drink? I mean, I have to ask, Well,
technically, no. Technically, the pilots are all essentially performers. We are having it be a real race, but it's an invitational, unlike most races that have 40, 50, or 100 pilots who get one or two chances a day to compete. We're going to have something like a dozen pilots, each of them racing probably 3 to 4 times per hour over the course of the event. So there's really going to be no time for those pilots to be drinking. But it is a long event, so we'll have shifts. And so if you're racing the first half of the event, of course, you can kind of stop being a pilot and go have fun at the rest of the event. But essentially, no, the drinking is for the audience. The drones is the entertainment.
Gotcha. Awesome. So in bringing in the nightclub experience, have you seen more success in bringing audiences to the races? Again, I know that's the difficult part about FPV racing. So has it enhanced that experience? And more so, has that liquor license and experience that you're providing to people, which is kind of more entertainment, is that helping you, keep the new flying track and building afloat? I mean, is it helping you run this as a business because you're the first guy? I mean, you're the first place where people can go on a regular basis that's indoors and not have any issues about airspace or anything like that. So, yeah. I mean, I guess to rephrase the question, is that helping you run the business and keep it running?
Absolutely. The nightclub experience that we're producing on the 16th is something that we'll be producing on a regular basis when we move into the Palace of Fine Arts full time. So starting in September, we'll be operating full time, essentially 7 days a week. And probably once a month, we'll do this nighttime cocktail bar event, this nightclub event. But what we'll be doing throughout the rest of the week and throughout the rest of the time is we'll be open for league nights. We'll be doing a lot of build and training sessions where we'll be giving people lessons on how to assemble drones as well as how to fly them. We'll be producing races and available for events. We'll have an open fly zone. And so you can kind of think of it as a template that's been seen in a lot of different activities from, say, a golf driving range or a miniature golf course, or even go-karts and laser tag and paintball. Like we're going to be pulling together a facility that takes kind of the best of those business models and it makes it available for drone pilots. So if you're a regular pilot in the Bay Area and you want a place to race and you don't want to worry about flying outside or the weather, you know that you can come on, say, Tuesday night, league night, and be racing against the best in the Bay Area on a regular basis. At the same time, if you're a newbie or even a tourist wandering by and you just want to find out what's going on and get a taste of it, we'll have rental drones available and training available, or even just have the spectator experience available if you just want to sit and watch. So we're trying to provide an all-in-one destination for both new pilots as well as experienced pilots, as well as a place for people to sort of celebrate the world of drones. If you want to have a birthday party and focus it around drones, this would be the place to do it. If you want to hold a race and know that you're going to have good weather and clean bathrooms and plenty of parking, again, this would be the place that you would want to do that. The best thing about this, or one of the benefits about this, is that in San Francisco, there aren't a lot of safe and easy accessible places to fly. And increasingly that we're finding, as people know in just about every city, we're finding our open air is getting restricted and we're starting to have conflicts with other people wanting to, share the space. And so having this indoor drone flying space that's enormous with a 50-foot ceiling and a, several 100-foot long, span from wall to wall really allows you to have a place that you can fly a drone, learn about racing, learn about drone sports, just get the basics of drone flying and keep that out of the national airspace and keep it out of our parks and other sort of recreational areas where those drones are sort of crowding the skies. And don't get me wrong, I'm all for drones flying around in the outside, and we do it ourselves. The open sky is ultimately the place that a lot of drones want to fly. But when it comes to drone sports, the reality of it is you don't need a huge space. You don't need a huge ceiling. You certainly don't need a 400-foot ceiling. And driving those sports indoors really solves a lot of problems, not only for the pilots, but also for, as we've been talking, for spectators.
Awesome. You've got so much going on. I'm not even sure where to go from here. I mean, are you planning on doing more of these? I know Popular Science wrote an article about you and this experience that you've created. Do you plan on trying to grow that experience, trying to franchise that experience? Because, hey, bring one to Albuquerque.
Absolutely. It's absolutely in our strategic plan to develop this as a franchise model. Quite frankly, though, we have to focus here in San Francisco on the first one and really, prove that this is a viable model. We feel confident that it is, but, before we really start spreading ourselves too thin in different markets, we really have to make this one work first.
Yeah.
The fact that our preview event on the 16th is sold out with pre-sale tickets over, several weeks before the event, that's a good indication that people are clamoring for this kind of entertainment. They're really searching for this resource if they want to learn how to fly a drone or just have the community around them where they can fly fun and competitively, but just have a friendly community. And so we aim to provide that sort of safe and fun space for people across the entire spectrum, whether they're newbies or experienced.
Awesome.
And so, of course, we would love to take this to other cities as well.
That is so awesome, Mark. I love what you're doing for the community, the drone community, the FPV community, and everyone. If we wanted to find out more about you or the experience that you have provided, where can we go?
Well, the best place to go is aerialsports.tv. We also have dsports.io, which is a second site that we're developing specifically for some of these more entertainment-based activities. And, of course, you can follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook as well.
Awesome. Mark, thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. I've been wanting for a long time to really discuss what you're doing with the community as a whole because I really find it extremely interesting. I really want to see you be successful. I hope this grows like wildfire. I'm sure it will. And if you have done an amazing job. So, Mark, from all of us at the community, thank you very much.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. And thank you for having me on the show.
Oh, absolutely. And guys, that's going to do it for us today. If you have a question yourself, go to askdroneu.com and upload your question. Check out Mark's website. You've got to check out the Aerial Sports League. Why? Because it's taking this hobby to another level and you have got to experience it. If you have the chance to go to one of Marque's events, highly recommend it. I've got a lot of friends who actually participate in that. Marque, thank you again. And everyone, we will see you next time. You're listening to Ask Drone U.